Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining from. Welcome to this exciting webinar. We have brought some very experienced speakers today. So I would like you to make it interactive. I'm joining from Raleigh, North Carolina. You can type in your name, say hello, where you're joining from in the chat. We would like to know you. Good morning, Prashant. Thank you so much for joining. Nice to see you. Okay. And before we get started, a few, I would say, logistics here. So there is a chat that I can see you guys are typing. Good morning, Mitch. Thanks for joining from Texas. And if you want to ask questions, there is a button on the right bottom of your screen. It has a question mark in it. Please use that option for asking questions. That way we can actually address them as soon as possible. We'll try to pick up questions during the webinar, but we'll also leave time at the end of the session to answer your questions. There are colleagues who are on the chat. They'll be monitoring the questions and answer on the chat, or we'll take it live. But please feel free to please feel free to type your questions, keep the questions coming. Hey, Gavin, thanks for joining. Manish from NYC. Jordi Alfonso from Europe, Spain. Wow, that's awesome. Michael Lynn from London. So we have audience here from US, Europe, Spain, London. Okay, this is very exciting. Thank you so much. I am joining from beautiful Raleigh in North Carolina. The weather is very nice today. It's 80 degrees Fahrenheit, clear sky, can't complain. So that's me. Please keep it coming. So Shai, good morning. Thank you for joining from Dallas, Homi and Richard. Okay, wonderful. Let's get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Vinod Unyal. As I said, I'm joining from Raleigh, North Carolina. I run the advisory partnerships business at CAS. So I work with my partners like Amdocs, Astadia, and I enjoy it. I wrote my first COBOL program almost 25 years ago. And today, I'm still dealing with mainframes. Mainframes, as you know, have been running the business critical systems for decades in banks, insurance companies, transportation, you name it, mainframes are there. But at the same time, mainframe experts are retiring. Business is demanding innovation, and the cost pressures are driving the need for modernization of mainframes. So today we are going to talk about what is driving mainframe modernization, what are the recurring challenges that you face when you are modernizing these business critical systems, and how you can address these modernization challenges with automation in discovery, and planning of these large, complex, staggered programs, and automation in automatically refactoring the programs from like COBOL to Java or .NET, sort of a like-for-like refactoring. So these are the topics that we will go deep into it. So let me introduce my fellow panelists here. So first, let me introduce Walter Sweet, CTO at Astadia, brings more than 40 years of experience. He is a veteran. I mean, I would lovingly call him the grandfather of mainframe modernization here. Thank you so much, Walter, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Then let me introduce Philippe. Philippe is the CTO in North America at CAST, working closely with me, and I've seen him working with many clients, helping them on very large mainframe modernization challenges. So Philippe brings very deep experience in software intelligence, automation in modernizing mainframes.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Philippe, for being here. And last but not the least, Mark Reef, services partner at financial services and digital engineering at Amdocs. Mark is also a veteran in the IT services delivery domain with more than 25 years at Amdocs, covering multiple roles ranging from infrastructure, testing, delivery. So Mark is somebody who brings a well-rounded experience working with the customers. Mark.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Vinod.
Thank you so much. So let's move on. Let me quickly introduce the agenda and then we'll dive into it. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to talk about mainframe modernization here. Why do you modernize? What are the challenges that you face when you're modernizing the mainframes? And how can we apply automation in mainframe? What does CAST bring in automating the discovery and analysis of the mainframe landscape? And typically, what we see in the field is that this is very, very large mainframe systems, but they have also been enhanced over the years with some distributed technology applications built on top of the mainframe. So it is typically a mainframe plus distributed, very, very complex scenario. And generally, it's not documented. You really do not know what are the dependencies, how the applications are talking to each other, how they are talking to the databases. So unless you do that upfront analysis, you do not have confidence in what you are dealing with. And then there are, of course, surprises, challenges that actually derail the program. So we'll talk about that kind of upfront discovery based on facts that will help you really plan your program very well with confidence. And typically, as I mentioned earlier, these are very complex, staggered programs, right, which takes multiple years to execute. Then we'll talk about automated refactoring. Our friends at Astadia bring that capability built over the years. We'll Once we have done these kind of modernization, we'll also talk about how to deal with the modernized platforms and continue the modernization even after you have exited the mainframe, right? And at the end, we'll also talk about Gen AI, how it is impacting the legacy modernization. So that's the agenda we have brought in for you. But at the same time, please feel free to bring questions, type it in the questions at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom right of the screen. Now, before we go further, we wanted to ask this simple question here. You would see a poll coming up on your screens. Please select the answers and let us know what are the main drivers for you to consider modernization of mainframes. And you can select one of the options. Of course, if it is possible that more than these options are applicable to you, you can select all of the above in that case. So we'll let the poll run in the meantime, and I will now bring my friend Walter here to take us through the journey of understanding the drivers, challenges in mainframe modernization.
Thank you very much, Vinod. I do appreciate it. And Vinod, I appreciate also you mentioning the grandfather uh, role for me. I'm actually coming up on my 50th year in the mainframe industry. I started out as a COBOL programmer in 1975. Doesn't seem that it could have gone this quickly, but I'm a big believer in the mainframe, as I think all of the people here on this panel are. We recognize that the mainframe is a great environment, um, and that it does so many things so well. And when we get the opportunity to talk to people who are in the mainframe space who are considering alternatives, we kind of approach it from that perspective that we appreciate what the mainframe does. At the same time, we hear from the companies with whom we get to interact that there are challenges, especially in today's world. Um, if we look at cost as a factor, we've been able to see over the last, dozen years, the advent of cloud and what it can do. And we had seen technologies prior to that that offered new ways of doing things in a non-mainframe type way. The bottom line that we hear often, though, especially when we're relating to the cloud, is that people have found that many of the ancillary pieces that go along with the cost of the mainframe can be much more substantial on the mainframe than they can be in the cloud. And that in truth, the mainframe operating costs in many cases are increasing. Maybe not just the cost of the hardware or the software, but perhaps some of the ISV products that go along with it. So cost is obviously a factor that comes into play as people are looking at their long range direction. Now, having been in this space for 50 years, I can tell you that the vast majority of the people that I started with have already retired or are getting ready to retire. And even that next generation of people are retiring now. So that business knowledge of the way these applications work, they're moving to Florida, they're retiring and living on the beach, and that knowledge is no longer there anymore. So every time one of those people leaves, it takes away the ability to better understand and to adjust these mainframe applications to reflect changing business needs. And then we all know that there just aren't the same number of people who are learning mainframe skills today as there were 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it's become more and more difficult to replace those people who are retiring. And certainly in the last 8 or 9 years, I would say the things that we've heard most often from our mainframe clients is the challenge that lack of agility offers when they compete against their peers. There are many companies who started now today who are very successful who've never been on a mainframe. So they've never done things in a mainframe type way. And what we hear consistently is that when these older organizations, the brick and mortar type shops with mainframes, are having to compete, it's more challenging for them to be able to respond in as quick a manner as some of the newer organizations who've never been on the mainframe. And then being able to integrate mainframe technologies with the work that they're doing off the mainframe can be quite challenging. So when we look at the drivers to what people face when they're looking about modernizing mainframes, as it says here, cost, skills, and agility we think are important. Now also, we're going to talk on the next slide about what it is that people face in terms of challenges, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what we discussed before. Philippe will attest to this and all the code that he's looked at over the years. Legacy code can be quite complex. I started, I hate to admit it, on a 360 Model 20 card machine. And then when we got disk drives, it was amazing. And when we got more than 64K of RAM, we were just as happy as could be. But to be able to utilize that, we had to leverage every possible bit and make it as efficient as possible. Now, tied to those same applications using that older technology, we arbitrarily have to fight through the decisions that we made before, so it's less efficient for us. So if we don't understand the way that code works, and there are all these inherent built-in complexities, that's a true challenge. Data migration, the same thing. Historically, disk drives were very expensive when they were invented. And so people were very efficient in using them in the best way possible to minimize space and cost. So you might have old vSAM files out there with 10 or 20 or 30 different record types in a single file. That's hard for someone to understand unless you're a programmer who can write something unique to be able to look at it. The shortage of the mainframe staff. I mentioned before, COBOL programmers, there are fewer of them. System programmers, much fewer of them. Natural database, IDMS, all of those other technologies. It is really challenging to be able to work with those older technologies if you don't have people who understand the technologies. And then the last item in terms of challenging situations for people who are considering modernizing their mainframe, the risk to business continuity. In the past, we found that most people were looking to get away from the mainframe, and they were more than willing to do a big bang conversion. But that's not the case anymore. I've been fascinated in the last 4 or 5 years to be able to talk to organizations of the huge size, the 100,000, 200,000 mainframes, where they have a direction and a directive to move away from the mainframe now. But it's hard to do that big bang on something that large. So understanding the way that applications are related so that you can help understand the order in which they can be moved off is imperative. And that goes back to understanding what people have. And that's what we're kind of talking about today. One of the tenets of this particular webinar is trying to understand where people are coming from, what their options are, and how they can modernize moving forward. We could go to the next slide, please. I think this slide has a lot of information on it, but I think it's very important. And this is generic in nature, we feel, based on all three of our companies' rich history in working with clients. We found that there are some tenets that hold true when people want to successfully be able to alter their mainframe migration path. First and foremost, you have to understand where you're coming from. You have to have a complete understanding of everything that's on your mainframe, not just your programs and your data, but all of the third-party products that are there, and understanding how everything is interrelated. So having a strategy for understanding where you're starting from is probably the most important component, in my opinion, in being able to ensure a successful alternative for you. Second, being able to, after you understand where you're coming from, have a strategy to map where you want to go. And maybe that means that you're going to retire some applications or rewrite them or refactor them, whatever is most applicable for you. But you want to have a comprehensive path that gets you there. Third, in the upper right-hand corner, we at Astadia happen to believe in using automation as a methodology for migration. There are people who manually convert applications, and it can certainly work. We have found, though, that especially with scale, that having tools that do the automation for you is terribly important. And then the fourth item, the scalability and flexibility in being able to manage the infrastructure, not being tied to a particular architecture that isn't flexible is very important. It's important to be able to have scalability and maintainability in these applications. So as you're moving forward, being able to take what was on the mainframe, make it work the same in the new world, and then scale it to where you want to go is important. And then the last item, if I may, is the operational support and the cloud optimization. Being able to leverage the things that are inherently available in the cloud environment allows people to be able to do things that they've perhaps been restricted from being able to do before. If we could go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Walter. I just wanted to recap the poll results earlier that we did. So our audience actually kind of agrees with all the reasons that you mentioned: mainframe skills shortage, lack of agility, innovation, and high cost of operating, almost at the same level. But overall, all these factors put together is what most of the audience agrees to. All of the above. One particular gentleman mentioned that it's mostly the agility and high cost that has been the driver in their projects, not the skill shortage, but I'm sure it's a combination of these three things that our audience is seeing in the field.
Great point. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you're looking for to start to at least touch or to modernize a landscape like all the different mainframe applications, it's important to consider various different type of information and to be sure that those information will be at least real, coming from the actual code and reality, and not just based on the perception and the expertise on the different people. Mainly because it's important to have an approach of automation and to scale the approach of modernization, and to industrialize and to measure all the different applications with the same yardstick in order to take the right approach and the right decision. And it's also important to not just consider one specific area. I mean, it's nowadays almost all the mainframe applications have some interaction with some distributed technology above them. And it's important to also consider and anticipate the impact on those specific type of applications. So typically when you have to start an actual portfolio discovery to understand what is the landscape, typically what we're running into is a two track. One track will be to focus on the different type of distributed application, which can be limited just to the one which are interacting with the actual mainframe, or broadly to address all the different type of distributed application on the one which are not interacting with the actual mainframe, having an approach of cleaning up the blockers, boosters, and then after facilitate the move to cloud. And on the one which have a specific type of leverage, mainframe connector, DB2 connectors, and so on, consider them as part of the second scope, which will be to address the actual modernization of the mainframe systems. And then after, on the actual mainframe applications, what is important is to identify all the different type of tech stack you have, because mainframe has a lot of different languages, a lot of different type of technique and potential software also on those elements. And it's important to identify the footprint of those kind of not so common type of languages in order to address them specifically, because that will not be a specifically straightforward to handle technology like Nomad, Focus, and some other very old system which are not so common on the market. And then after on the one which are pretty standard, like GCL, COBOL, DB2 type of profile of application, having a specific type of approach of modernization. And then for that, typically in this specific type of initial discovery, it's really to gather information about the technology, gathering the information about the interdependency between the actual applications at the program level, for example, and also the interdependency at the data level. Because on the mainframe, it's very common to have some interaction with the database, but not at the same time. Batch will be more overnight, where the transactional aspect can be during the day. Then all these kind of information will facilitate the definition of the different buckets for the different type of approach of modernization.
Yeah. So Philippe, thank you so much for going a little bit deep into the portfolio discovery. And at least in my mind, whenever I have interacted with the clients and partners, I mean, this is the phase which I feel is the most critical one, where generally the analysis paralysis takes over unless you have all the facts that you need to really plan the modernization roadmap and understand what you're dealing with, right? So give me some examples here, Philippe, in your experience when you are working with the clients. What's the kind of range that you are seeing in terms of number of applications and the size of the code base that you are typically dealing with? And when you deal with those kind of applications and the size of the code base, are there any mega ones that come to your mind? And generally, what's the time duration that it takes to analyze, discover this code base? Just give us some examples there. That'll be very helpful.
Sure. So, I mean, I would say 3-4 years ago, it was more specific system people were looking for to modernize due to specific type of constraints in terms of maintenance or in terms of business functionality. Nowadays, we're seeing more and more specific initiative of data center decommissioning, where you have really at least all the applications of a specific division, which should be a candidate of modernization. So in terms of range, nowadays it's more to start this kind of discussion against 100 to 200 application in terms of number of applications, which represents 100 to 150 million line of code in terms of size. So that is really the type of requests we're getting these days. And that, I mean, portfolio discovery phase 0 can be split in different parts. I would say the initial fact base coming from the actual collection of the DNA of the applications, it's more like something like a 6 weeks type of engagement to come with the initial split in different waves. And then after there are some second wave or activity which start to correlate this kind of pure tech lens and view with different type of additional business information, just and infrastructure information. So it's where the criticality of the application will start to play a role on the definition of waves, the actual MIPS consumption, the information about which data center is actually, resides the application, and so on. So all this kind of additional information will change, of course, the actual wave definition. But the key thing is first to start with fact-based information, and then after start having the discussion, because it's where you can start having a real definition of journey, I would say. Hopefully this will respond to the question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Philippe, for answering that question. So, Gavin, if you have further questions, please feel free to ask, and we can provide more information. But exactly, Gavin had this question, how do you decide on wave planning? And he believes that this is the most difficult of the phases or issues in planning the mainframe modernization. Okay. You want to add anything, Philippe? Or?
Yeah, just so a quick question on the fly. So, application, it's really a concept of which will, sometimes not clear. So I would say we'll name an application a group of programs and elements, batch transactions, which will support a specific group of functionality, which can be managed by the same team in order to at least start the transformation specifically on that team. And as part of the discovery, it's very common to not have all the source code. Of course, there are some missing module, unused program, and so on. So that's very common. So it's for that, as part of the discovery, we're identify all the different type of missing tables, missing programs, and so on, which will facilitate to define the boundary of the different applications in order to be sure that the next step will be optimized.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Philippe. Now let's just make it a little bit real. So you gave some examples of 100 applications or 100 plus applications, 150 million lines of code. And there is a question here. How long would it take to discover 100 apps and 150 million lines of code manually? And is it even possible? It's a good question. Manually, I don't think it is possible, but I don't know. It will probably take years and years and years, and it would still not be done. And that's the reason why we bring the automation in discovery whenever you are dealing with large, complex code bases, hundreds of applications. Yeah. Okay. So we have a poll question here before we move on. So we would like to learn from you how you are planning to modernize your mainframe applications. Do you want to exit the mainframes completely, or you are thinking of incrementally doing it, incrementally modernizing, moving some of the functionality to the cloud, or you are thinking about in-place modernization of the mainframe, or is it all of the above? So the poll is live. Keep submitting your questions, and we'll be back with the results very soon. So let's move on, Philippe.
Yeah, so as part of the actual discovery, we will come with different type of buckets. So if the application is ready for refactoring, it's really an approach of fast track, like here on the screen, to start to having this one ready for code conversions. You do the code conversion to some other language like Java, .NET, with Astadia, and then once you have that specific application ready and converted, then you can come with a new technical knowledge base coming from CAS, for example, to facilitate the practitioners like Amdocs to come ramp up new developers, define and design the actual modernization and the move to cloud type of activity you will have for those kind of systems in order to continue to modernize the actual system. So that is, I would say, the first type of bucket. And then after, when you have specific type of technology or specific type of elements which will not be a good candidate for a refactor, then you need to find some alternative. That alternative can be replatforming, emulation of the system, and not touching on the COBOL, or try to take the track of break and rewrite the different type of functionality, or to consider to first fragment the actual systems on the mainframe to have some smaller module eligible for a refactor or for some other solutions to facilitate the actual approach of modernization, and to leverage the scalability and the automation aspect of the platform. So once you have that, you will have two track, as I mentioned, for the phase 1, 2, and 3. So after the actual portfolio, one track will be replatform, the other track will be refactor, and I will let Walter driving you through the rest of the steps. You're muted, Walter.
My apologies. Thank you very much, Philippe. As Philippe mentioned, we recognize that there are no two mainframe environments exactly the same. So the challenges that people face will vary from organization to organization. Our joint approach is to try to recognize what is best for every one of our mainframe clients and to assist them along the way that best suits them. So often we, after doing an analysis where we understand where the company is coming from, we look at what the alternatives might be for them. It might be, as Philippe had mentioned, a replatform where you're able to leverage doing things in pretty much the same way, but in a new environment, most often associated with trying to reduce cost. It might be what we at Astadia do, refactoring, where we're able to leverage automation to take whatever someone is coming from and deciding where they want to go, both from an application and a data perspective, and then to leverage testing in an automated fashion to assist with that. And that's where we partner with Amdocs. Amdocs has a tool called Ginger that Mark will talk about a little bit later on, that it gives us the ability to coordinate the testing capabilities throughout this process. The goal for all of this is to have an assurance that things work exactly the same, that the performance meets or exceeds what people saw on the mainframe, and to be able to ensure that the user experience can be the same as they're moving forward. Mark, if you're okay, I'd love to ask you to talk about Ginger and some of the capabilities that it provides in terms of the approach that we're talking here for mainframe.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, thank you, Walter. So Ginger is Amdocs open source test automation framework. It is used in our case to orchestrate the automated testing that is being done with the Astadia tools, and helps to incorporate an end-to-end test scenario for the converted applications. So basically, we want to ensure that not only we've validated that the code is converted successfully, but also that end-to-end these modified applications are running successfully within the new environment that they are now targeted to run in as a replacement for the migrated apps. Ginger can be run as an orchestrator. It, like I said, it's open source. It can be downloaded, and we provide a lot of consulting services with that. We can talk about that separately as we move on.
Perfect. And before we talk about automation for refactoring, let me just quickly share the poll results earlier. So we asked the question, how are you planning to modernize the mainframe applications? There is a sort of tie here, but I think incremental migration to cloud, that's the preferred choice here among the audience. Almost 34% are saying that's what they prefer. 20% want to exit mainframe completely, and 13% for in place modernization. So I think incremental migration to cloud is the preferred choice here for the audience. Thank you. Over to you, Walter.
Thank you very much, Vinod. I've mentioned the word automation quite a few times already, and the reason that I do is that we think that it is a key component to have consistent, measurable results when undertaking a mainframe migration. And the reason that we have this slide up is that we want to recognize that it's not just converting code and converting data.
Yeah, so Philip, it looks like we are losing Walter. Is it the same for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think he'll come back. Maybe you want to take it up while we wait for Walter to be live again.
Yeah, I mean, what is key in terms of automation is to be able to really consider the code conversion, as well as be able to have an approach of testing.
Important. It's
And
having a
Oh,
Yeah, so back to you, Philip.
Okay.
Walter will join back. He lost his internet connection. So
Sure. So to be able to convert and then after, in order to be sure that at least the new application can replace the former one, it's important to do an actual testing. And then the best way to test is to be able to run in parallel the transactions through the old and the new platform, and to be able to compare the actual data which reside on the two data storage, in order to be sure that at least the application has been well converted, and it's supporting all the different type of transactions which used to go through the mainframe and now going through the new platform before moving that one in production. Of course, that is really at ISO functionality. It's to try to not transform too much the actual architecture, mainly to secure all the different functionality and be sure that nothing will be broken during the actual conversion. The actual modernization will appear after that code transformation, after the specific approach of automation of code conversion, testing, and then after the phase 3 of modernization, we'll see that right after. Hopefully I covered correctly his slides. I apologize for that. So in terms of, yeah, go ahead, Vito.
Yeah, Philip. So let's just take some questions which are pretty
Sure.
related to what we were just discussing. And in my mind, when we talk about automated refactoring, I think the biggest benefit here is like for like conversion. Since the functionality remains the same, you can actually automate the testing and be sure that the converted application behaves exactly the way it was before. So less risk in that conversion, right? So that's in my mind is the biggest benefit. Now, there is a question here from Suraj. Is refactored code tightly coupled with any kind of runtime library or packages to run the migrated application in any cloud or on-prem environment?
So in terms of library, after conversion, everything is, I would say, share with the client. So there are no proprietary library used for that after conversion. And it's not attached to native to a specific cloud provider. that type of decision of architecture transformation is most of the time done after when you're starting the actual monetization. All this process is really to try to secure and reduce the risk as maximum as possible, and to be sure that the actual decision of transformation in terms of decommissioning a database, for example, to being more native and to have some service from a cloud provider, or to make the actual .NET, for example, more native, that need to be done and decided by the at least practitioners who are leading the typical type of monetization system, and to be sure that this is aligned with the strategy of the client or the best practices of that specific tech stack.
Yeah, thank you, Philippe. And let's go to the next slide. And in fact, there was a question from Andre exactly on this topic. Does CAS support the discovery for transformed procedural Java source code resulting from an Astadia migration from COBOL to Java? So yes, CAS supports not only mainframe, but the distributed technologies. And yes, the transformed code can be scanned with CAS. And this is, we are going to talk about how do you continue the modernization once you have transformed. So over to you, Philippe. And
Yes.
Walter, thank you for being back. So we covered.
My apologies, everyone.
No problem. No problem. There are some questions in the chat that I will direct to you, Walter. But let's go on, Philippe.
Yeah. So So as you saw, CAS will help on the portfolio level discovery, define the wave, and also after the code conversion to analyze that specific new code set in .NET or in Java, for example, to come with a technical knowledge base to accelerate the ramp up of developers who will now discover this new system on that specific .NET or Java, and then after decide on the best way to modernize that specific system. And this kind of modernization can be addressed by different approach. That can be by, we'll say, east-west type of modernization by specific layers, like addressing the database first or the front end first, and in order to revamp the different type of services and user interfaces. That's one approach. Addressing the actual transaction by having north-south or south-north type of modernization, really to try to optimize specific type of transaction, which might be critical to distribute across different type of servers or secure this kind of set of functionality. As well as breaking and fragment the actual monolith you have at the beginning to have an approach of monolith, then macro, then after micro, and break by set of a module and functionality in order to start having a way to expose more and more APIs, and then after to facilitate the interaction with the other system and to start having more services provided by that specific system. And additional to that, CAS will help to facilitate the transformation of the code by making that specific, for example, in .NET, making the .NET more .NET Core compatible to facilitate the identification of the different type of blockers we have on that kind of elements, identify specific type of technology like ESPX or rather or a specific type of framework which should be considered to decommission or to replace in order to have that specific system now eligible to be running on Linux, for example, and to be more native and to start activate more and more services from the cloud in order to scale this specific type of application. So it's not just one specific action on the system. It's really to transform the system into a new tech stack. Then after bringing the practitioners as part of the journey, helping them to understand the new system, and then after helping them to evaluate the impact and the a way of transforming and modernizing the actual new system into some more native application. That is really the key thing. And then after, we are typically try to target to have system more and more cloud native, and with leveraging different type of cloud services. And I will let Mark and driving that step.
Okay. Thank you, Philippe. So I think let's go to the next slide, and then we'll circle back to this one. Because like you said, the migration is not just the migration of the code, it's a mindset shift. And we're changing tools, processes, and upskilling people along the way. So there's a wide variety of services that we need to attach to this journey. The post, in parallel to what Cast and Astadia are doing, there are additional things that we need to take into account. First and foremost is actually project management, program management, providing prime-side services, ensuring that we have a program that is defined correctly with all the steps along the way, ensuring that we include all the business stakeholders and get the business requirements for the modernized application in place. That is, and ensuring that the project is on time and on budget. So that's across the whole life cycle of the project. In parallel to that, we're also changing the tools that we're working with. We're changing the operations, and we want to implement DevSecOps. So we obviously need to provide consulting and upskilling to the team. We need to bring the right tools and processes, and we will work with any tools that the customer would like us to work with. We talked about testing. We provide an end-to-end testing function for the modernized code. Digital engineering is an extension, Philippe, of what you said about when you define what the code will look like in after it's been decomposed and in microservices. So we provide the service of building those microservices, testing them, ensuring that they run, and obviously everything else, around environment management and the cloud migration. So, we are cloud agnostic. We work with all the three large cloud providers. We can work on-prem or in the cloud itself. So we can work on private cloud or public based on preferences. And we provide consulting along the way on how to choose the right cloud, how to deploy, how to support, and how to operate. So we also provide operation support for the code that's been migrated, if that is something that is of interest to the customer once we're done with the migration. So I think that's in a high level, just talking about the overall services that are provided together with Cast and Astadia to provide an end-to-end experience and a one-stop shop of going from mainframe to a modernized stack.
Mark, did you want to go back to the previous cloud services?
No, I think Vinod, it's an extension of what I said. We provide end-to-end cloud consulting, and in general, that's another service that we provide. I don't think that there's anything specific here that people don't know, but if there are specific questions about the Amdocs services around the migration, I'm happy to address them when we're done with the when we go into the Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. And let's go to Walter and kind of wrap up what we have presented so far. And we are watching the questions here. In case we have not answered your question, please feel free to. We are going to look at it, but keep your questions coming. We are answering them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vinod. We looked at this slide before, and I mentioned earlier that we used it as a guideline, a template for the characteristics of migration that we thought were important. We wanted to touch back again to say the three companies that are represented here, we feel can assist our customers in satisfying these goals, being able to understand where they're coming from, utilizing CAS tools gives an understanding of what the art of the possible is. Being able to take Amdocs customer experience software along with Astadia's migration solutions, we think is extremely important in being able to ensure that that customer experience is works the same and can be extended for them. In the upper right-hand corner, being able to combine the capabilities of the company to help assist in the cloud migration and modernization definition and optimization for clients is important. And then being able to ensure scalability and flexibility moving forward. And that's something that Amdocs does a tremendous job of assisting their customers with being able to ensure that they can meet those ever-changing needs. And then finally, being able to tune the new environment for operational efficiency and cost reduction, we feel gives clients that end-to-end spectrum of things that the majority of our clients are talking about. They want to understand where they're coming from. They want to have a proven methodology to understand where they can go and how to get there. And once they're in the new platform, they want to find ways to do things differently than perhaps they've had to do them for the last 20, 30, or 40 years. So the tools that we talked about here in today's session are examples of tools that can assist customers, but we think the important part is the methodology that is discussed here. We would like to highly recommend that as anyone considers alternatives to the mainframe, that they consider those three major tenets and ensure that they have a pathway that addresses them. And with that, Vinod, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Walter, and thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Mark. But I will not let you go before we have answered question about Gen AI and AI. My favorite topic. And there is a question actually. So Benedict has a question. How much of AI, Gen AI is already built into the presented tools, or are these static approaches transformations? Okay. Very good question. So I would probably let you go, Walter, first, and then we'll go to Philippe and Mark.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I think Gen AI obviously comes into play with the offerings for all three companies. From Astadia's perspective, I'll use that word automation again. We are almost 100% automated in our solution. The actual number that we average is 99.9962% automated. So we are not using Gen AI as a way to get to 100% automation. We're focusing on those areas that are also equally as important in migration projects, like enhanced testing, security, those things that go along with code and data migration, being able to do code optimization after conversion. Those are just three of the 6 tenets that we are in process of implementing with Gen AI today. We are not using Gen AI as a core component of our conversion capabilities. Philippe, Mark, I don't know if you would like to talk about Gen AI from your perspectives as well.
I mean, for on our side, the key thing for now is to facilitate the access to the information. So Caswell is able to produce an enormous volume of data, and then the key thing to take the right decision is to at least be able to aggregate all this kind of information and to facilitate the information to the different enterprise architect or different players on the different elements. So the interface with natural language is key for us to facilitate the access to and dialogue between the system, I mean, cast and the end user. That one aspect. After there's some other area of effort on R&D on our side to at least processing all the data in a certain way to facilitate activation of different type of I would say understanding about the different type of flow of data and extraction of different type of information, domain, functional domain, and so on within the actual of a specific system. That will be the second area of focus on our side. And then after we have different type of effort to feed third-party MML type of systems, since CAST is able to normalize the data, identify the limited scope and context of all the program which are supporting a specific transaction, for example, or domain of functionality that help to facilitate the third-party type of code transformation or rewriting or understanding or recreate some technical specification when you have to do some rewrite. Sorry, I was a little bit long. Over to you, Mark.
Okay. All right, I'll try and sum it up in 1 minute. We use GenAI in all of our tool sets today. We use it it's embedded into Ginger today already to help with designing test cases and automation, as Walter discussed earlier. We use it in our smart operations to run the modernized code with the Copilot. We use it for the cloud definitions and setup and configuration, and we use it in our development processes and methodologies to develop modernized code. So we use it across the board. It is embedded in our tools, and it's increasing as we on a day-to-day basis. It's a very large investment from Amdocs in GenAI.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark, Philippe, and Walter. I'll take one more question here and then wrap up, and we'll just take 30 seconds on it. So there is a question about some reference projects and the duration of the modernization projects, and what kind of efficiency have you seen being achieved in those kind of projects? So Walter, I'll go to you first, and then Philippe.
Okay. We are seeing projects get larger as we are talking to larger customers now. If we talk in terms of T-shirt sizes, historically, if I may do that, a small project might have been, 500 MIPS and 9 months. Medium-sized project, 9 to 15 months. A large project, 15 to 24 months. And the mega projects could often be multiple migrations, 24 months and above. In terms of MIPS for the large, that went from the 500 to the 2,000 to the 5,000. And now we're talking consistently with organizations who are 50,000 MIPS and above. So it runs the gamut anymore.
Yeah, and the kind of efficiencies that you have seen, Walter?
In terms of potential savings, we've seen people save 60 to 80% in terms of cost after migration. In terms of developer capabilities, what our clients are telling us is that being able to leverage the newer tools that exist, that they have found that their development teams are often at least 50% more efficient in terms of being able to revolutionize their applications.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Walter. And Philippe, 30 seconds on discovery, similar application size, t-shirt size, discovery, how long does it take?
I mean, it take I mean, depend on the size, but we'll say less than 50 million. This will be a couple of weeks, depending on the readiness of the code. On 100 million brackets, it's more like 4 weeks engagement, and 150 and then 200 are more around 6 for the initial discovery. Then after, as I said, the actual definition of the waving, starting to bring different type of information and characteristics that take several months because there are a lot of impact. The key thing is in terms of efficiency, is to save time, break the ice at the beginning to be sure that you will be able to start the project sooner than later. And then after, to really try to at every step to reduce the risk of failure by anticipate and to define actions as early as possible.
Thank you so much, Philippe. And with that, we will close on time. So thank you, Walter. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, audience, for your great questions. It was a pleasure. If we have not covered all the questions, please feel free to reach out to us. The emails are right here. And this is just the beginning. Let's continue this discussion. Let's continue this conversation. I am really enjoying it. See you on the field. Thank you so much. Have a great day and great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.